Does anyone have a question? You know, along on a spiritual path, there are many rewards that come, many of them intangible. We can't touch them, but we feel the transition in ourselves and we feel the changes taking place within us. And of course, as I've said many times, the ultimate goal of all of this is to truly arrive at a place where there's unconditional love. And there's really this depth of surrender that enables the energy of God to flow through us, to nurture us, and to truly guide our lives. And, you know, before that happens, there's all of that muck that exists inside people. Nothing wrong with that, and one should never beat themselves up because they're having a difficult time dealing with their thoughts and their emotions. But recognize these things are just an incredible reminder, as I say all the time, that we have to do the inner work. And Rudy told me, I don't know, a million times, work brings more work. It really does. And the work on oneself is perhaps the most difficult work of all. But as we open deeper and deeper inside, we discover, you know, that no matter how far we go, the work has really just begun. There's no limit to the consciousness that exists within a human being. And to get to that limitless consciousness, we have to overcome all the blocks and tensions and things that keep us from doing it. And again, these things aren't necessarily negative things. They're just reminders. Hey, I haven't gone deep enough yet. There's no reason to beat myself up because I'm not perfect. Does anyone have a question they would like to ask?
I have a question, Stuart.
Yes.
I got one of Rudy's books, and in it he was talking about not being concerned about the personality of the spiritual teacher. And
personality of what?
Of the teacher.
Yeah.
I mean, I should quote it exactly, but I don't remember.
You don't have to, Alicia. I know what you're talking
about. And then I just was curious as your thought. You know, there's many teachers with high consciousness or healers that then also have a very large shadow side. And then, you know, there's a lot of mess that can happen. And I'd just be curious to hear your thoughts.
You know, I understand perfectly that situation. There's no teacher that's easy. There's no teacher alive that you can't find things wrong with them, things you like and things you don't like. And one has to remind themselves continuously why they're there, what they really go to that teacher for. It's not, you know, like Rudy used to always say, he wasn't running from Miss America. He was a channel of Shakti. He was a channel of energy. He was a source for that energy because that energy would flow through him. And it took me a while to realize that, you know? I mean, you know, look, the first time Rudy ever invited me up to his house, I was a very young man. I had very, strict images of what I thought meditation and spiritual practice were all about. And I was invited up to his apartment, and he's sitting there in his chair, in half lotus position. And I'm sitting there at his feet doing my meditation, trying to absorb Shakti. And he asked one of his students to bring him the scotch and water. Now, I was 25 years old, and I never dreamed ever that, what happened? Oh, there you are. I never dreamed ever that I would be sitting in front of a guru and he'd be drinking scotch and water, And I had this decision to make. Am I going to get up and walk out with my opinion of teachers, or am I going to get past that to understand profoundly why I was there? I wasn't there to judge him. I was there to receive the Shakti. That is the first and last time I ever saw Rudy drink. First and last time. And what it was really about for me was, can I go above that? Can I recognize the real relationship I have with this extraordinary being who is sitting in front of me? Or am I going to sit there, oh, he's drinking scotch, he's drinking water, how can I study with him? I would sit with Rudy in his store and he would say, look, go around the corner and get us a couple of, submarine sandwiches. And I had this idea of, purity of food and, so I went around the corner and I got a couple of submarine sandwiches, and I ate, 3/4 of it. And while I was eating it, the Shakti that was transmitted into me from my teacher was so extraordinary that it made me realize that I am not here to judge anybody. I am here for only one reason. I was only there to receive the Shakti, to go above my opinion of what I thought a spiritual teacher was supposed to be. And that really freed me, to be honest, to accept you all, because everyone sitting here is different. There are things I like, there are things I don't like. And years of working that way have taught me it doesn't matter. What I'm here to do is to nurture the Godhead in every single person who comes to these classes. I'm not here to judge, people's personalities and who they are and what they are. I'm here to, to just transmit the Shakti and to accept people as they are and understand that everyone can grow. Everyone can grow. Everyone changes. They're not going to change according to the way I want them to change, but they will change. Now, the biggest example of this that I ever saw in my life, and it literally transformed me, was Rudy and his teacher. Rudy's teacher was a very difficult person. And I won't get into it. I saw it with my own eyes. I spent lots of time with both of them. And I knew that Rudy couldn't go to this person's ashram. It was very difficult for him to go there. And then I saw why. I really saw why with my own eyes. And I said to him one day, I said, Rudy, why do you do this? Why do you have to put yourself through this with this person? He said, Stuart, I have never met anyone in my life who can break me down more than this human being. That's why I go. I need to be broken down. I need to go to the deepest level of surrender I can find in myself. I need to go to a place where I am truly not involved with personality, with my likes and this, but I am truly connected to God. He's the first person I've ever met in my life who can do this for me. That's why I go there. I don't have to like him. I have to go there to get the training that will give me my spiritual life. Now, when I heard him say that, I was like, it completely blew my socks away. I said, that's one of the most profound things I ever learned from him. I am not here to judge. I am here to receive. And that's what a teacher is supposed to do. You understand? But if a teacher is playing psychic games and they're, trying to control you, and, you are their disciple and they treat you like a piece of shit, that, unless you're strong enough as Rudy to be able to take that and break it down, you don't have to go through that. You can walk away from it. You can walk away from it. And attract somebody into your life. I mean, Rudy used to beat the hell out of me. He really did. He once came up to me and he had broken with that teacher. And I'm digging ditches in Big Indian at the ashram there. And he said to me, Stuart, I have broken with Swami, I won't mention the name, and but I want to experiment with his techniques. And I'm going to use you to experiment with his techniques. I went through a whole year of having to deal with that. And the greatest thing I ever learned was how to deal with that and not allow the bullshit of life to ever interfere with my spiritual practice. And it taught me black magic. It taught me so many things that later in my life, I had to use that training in order to deal with people that were trying to do terrible things to me. And this went on for a year, and I'll never forget it. It was so hard. It was so hard. And I understood why I was there. I wanted to run away 50 times. I said, where am I going to go to find anybody who can do what he is doing for me? And not only was he doing it to me, but it came in, he cared about me. It was love that made him teach me about all these things, because he knew someday I would have to know about these things of what was going to take place in my life. I could have run away. I said, who needs to learn about black magic and all this bullshit, and all this stuff, And 20 years after he died, I needed to know all that stuff because people were trying to do that stuff with me. And I had the training, I was broken down and I had the training to be able to deal with it. So we're not here to judge the teacher. We're here to learn what the teacher has to teach. And then one day, the wonderful thing about Rudy is that beneath all of that training was unconditional love. He cared about me. He wanted me to learn what he had to teach. He knew the kind of things that were going to happen in my life. And I needed to learn. And he spent an entire year, I'm talking about just busting my chops. It was really hard. And this wasn't personality. This was nothing but Stuart has to learn this, or he'll never be able to do with his life what he really has to do with his life. So it's not personality, it's what you're capable of taking from a teacher. How deeply you want to go inside yourself and use whatever a teacher has to teach you, so that you can grow in your life. All the rest of it is bullshit, because look what goes on in this world. And if you don't have the inner strength to deal with all the crap that goes on in this world, forget about it. It eats you up. It eats you up alive. So I had that training. And yes, it was hard. And I probably 3 times a day wanted to run away. What am I doing? And then where am I going to go? Who's going to do this for me? It's like the same thing he said to me about his teacher. I go there because I know that he can break me down. I don't go there because it's a spa and a pleasurable place to be, and I need to be broken down. And through that, he became the most amazing being I ever spent time with. And when I saw it, when I really with my own eyes saw what was going on and what really took place between him and that, I said, holy shit, Rudy, why do you go through this? Why do you do this? I need to be broken down. I cannot do it for myself. I've never met another person who can do it for me. He does it for me. So, you know, this is something difficult to digest, but it's something literally, I hate to say this, everybody has to go through it in one way or another. And on the other side of it is literally a spiritual life. You've learned to master the muddy water. Like I write in my book, the lotus flower in muddy water. You learn how to grow out of the muddy water and produce this beautiful flower, which is your heart that embraces the sun. And that's why Rudy wrote that in his book.
Is there any of your books, Stuart, that goes into more detail?
2 o'clock.
Hmm?
Is there any book that you wrote that goes into more detail of how Rudy worked with you?
Yeah, I wrote a book called, look, it's a book that's now called The Mystical Ferry Boat and Other Stories. You can get it from Amazon. And in that book, there's 3 novellas. There are 3 stories. One of them is called Rudy. And this is the story of, I was in an airplane crash with Rudy. I don't know if you know that, where he took his samadhi in that airplane crash. And it is the story of, it's not just the story of Rudy, but it's the story of what it really means to have a spiritual teacher. What that relationship is really about. And it's kind of an allegory. It starts when the plane takes off and it ends when the plane hits the mountain. But it's the whole relationship encapsulated in this story, you know, of what it means to have a teacher, the struggles, the this, the that, everything else that's involved in having a spiritual. I would suggest reading that, you know. You can get that book from Amazon. And in that book, there's another one called The Mystical Ferry Boat, which is a voyage through the 7 chakras. But it's also kind of an allegory and written that way. You know, it's you know, literature. And there's a third one called The Dancing Man in that, which is also the story of Shiva in the South Bronx. I mean, what a young man has to go through, you know, to truly embrace his teacher. So I would suggest reading that book. You know, and there's other ones I wrote called Navigating the River of Time, which is, you read that book and you say, if this crazy young kid can do it, anybody can do it. I mean it. So I've written a lot of books, you know. Those 2 I particularly like. There's others I like, and I recommend them. Excuse me. Does anyone else have a question? Okay, if there are no more questions, then there'll be a class on Thursday. God bless you all. Thank you. And I'm looking forward to seeing everybody Thursday.
Thank you, Stuart. God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart.
You're welcome.